Could you do that a little louder, Peter?
Edit that out, Jeremy. I usually don't use notes. I use my phone, but
I know.
I'm going the Jeremy route here.
All right. Welcome.
Welcome to I'd Buy That for $1, a podcast about inexpensive, common, and underappreciated records that are waiting to be rediscovered. I'm your host, Sean Hartman, undercover Army officer, currently masquerading as a merchant seaman, scrapyard worker, and podcaster.
One of those things is not like the other.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. That's concerning to me. Well, I'm co-host Jeremy, and as everybody knows, the extent of my research is me going to Google and just typing in the name of the band and just starting to read the first thing I see.
Right, so you're...
But I've wisened up.
You're pretty up on the anime?
I've wisened up. I know we're not talking about anime. I know we're not talking about the video game. I'm not going to go to Google. I'm just going to trust that we're doing an Australian group because of our guests, right?
Well, that was a good assumption.
Nah.
Are we going to rock out at least?
I don't know if we're going to be doing much rocking out here, Jeremy.
Are we going to get funky with it?
I don't know if funky is how I would describe this album.
All right. Well, I'll just go with the flow then. Only time will tell if I like this.
All right. Well, I am co-host Peter Cook, and I'm not going to waste time fooling around here. Pitter patter. Let's get at her.
Oh, I almost went that route.
Joining us, as alluded to already, is the I'd Buy That for $1 Australian correspondent, as well as an architect, record store owner. That's just scratching the surface. Welcome back to the program, Melanie Bale Smith.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. I need to let you know that I collect rocks. You know, so we may not be rocking out, but I definitely collect rocks, and I've always collected rocks. And this album fits the bill.
Yeah, definitely an album you can sort your rock collection to.
Would you like to introduce the album, Mel?
I would. The album that we are going to cover in this podcast episode is Clannad's Magical Ring, released in 1983 on RCA.
It is, yeah. The copy that I have, that I purchased in the United States, was released on Terra, it was released on RCA all over the world except in Ireland. It was released on Terra, and somehow the copy that I have here is on Terra. But yes, mainly an RCA release in other parts of the world. And it's sold well in many parts of the world due to the inclusion of the band's biggest hit single, Theme from Harry's Game, which to date is the only British hit single ever to have been sung entirely in Irish, like Gaelic.
Did you see the video of them singing it on Top of the Pops, the BBC music program? It's the only song ever sung in Gaelic on Top of the Pops, and I'm unsurprised.
Yeah, I watched that, and I think the original promotional video, they pushed this song hard, and it paid off. Well, should we listen to the song so people can hear it before we go any further?
Sounds good.
All right, so this is Theme from Harry's Game by Clannad, 1983, although the song actually came out in 82. We'll talk more about it. Side A, track 1.
Oh
Okay, so a pretty magical, ethereal, kind of haunted sounding track there. Were there any production elements of that piece that perhaps reminded anyone of a previous song artist that we discussed?
What?
Well, it's
Specifically with the vocal layering.
Oh, it's like 10cc. I'm not in love.
That's right. Yeah. Now,
Wow, I didn't make that connection till you prompted that. And then as soon as you did, I was like, oh, it's just like that.
yeah, those voices I believe they recorded somewheres in the area of 100 overdubs on this song, and they utilize the same method of bringing the faders up and down, playing the different notes of the members, singing them just like they did on 10cc's I'm Not in Love that we discussed way back, I know, on episode 10, because we were clever and did I think it just happened to end up that way, that episode 10 was 10cc. But it's interesting because members of Clannad in interviews have said that the engineer producer on this, Richard Dodd, had worked on 10cc's I'm Not in Love. I could not find any evidence of that being the case. I'm not saying it's not true, but I couldn't find any concrete evidence. He's worked on a lot of stuff. I believe Sean did a little deep dive on Richard Dodd. Do you have any of the other things he's worked on handy, Sean?
Well, I didn't make a list. I mean, he has a huge list of things that he worked on, especially as a mixing and mastering engineer. But most importantly, he's best known for his extensive work with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. He actually won a Grammy for his engineering on one of the Tom Petty albums.
Yeah, which that I believe all came after this time period, early 1980s.
Yeah, I think that's correct, or it's similar. Maybe it's slightly parallel, but yeah, it's in this same decade, I guess you could say.
I'd say at the very least, Dodd was aware of how they had achieved the sound on I'm Not in Love and utilized the same method.
Yes. They were also programming, they used a Prophet 5. So being the synth nerd that I am, which maybe I haven't revealed this in previous episodes, and it's something that's burgeoned again in recent times with my son becoming very interested in electronic music and production. They also programmed and used Prophet 5 to create some of those choral pad sounds. So whether they were sampling their own recordings and putting those through, or in tandem with the Prophet, I think there's no kind of video of them recording in the studio or anything like that you can, and not a lot of written information available about it. But yeah, it is interesting that they kind of were employing the synthesizers available at that time. This was, at the time, the Prophet was like a 5-year-old, and had been around for about 5 years. So, yes, it really brings about such an incredible ethereal effect to the music, the layering, and it does have that. I had not made that 10cc connection, but now I cannot unsee it or unhear it.
Oh yeah, it's there.
Oh yeah.
I listening back several times is when I started to pick up on it. And we need, for those not familiar with Clannad, which I imagine many of our listeners are not, even though they are a world famous group and a family, as we'll get to. But at this time, when this came out, this was a drastic departure. In 1982, Clannad had been commissioned by Yorkshire TV to compose a piece for a drama series called Harry's Game that was based on Gerald Seymour's novel set during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, that at that time still an ongoing ethno-nationalist conflict. U2's Sunday Bloody Sunday is about civilian bloodshed as a result of the Troubles. The members of Clannad quickly put together a piece that they felt was more ethereal than the grim reality of life in Northern Ireland as depicted in that series, Harry's Game. And the Irish Gaelic lyrics that we heard are derived from a book of old Irish proverbs, the overall sentiment being everything that is and will be will cease to be. The chorus in there, fall all the dough, fall all the day, actually comes from the ancient Irish folk mouth music tradition that's common in upbeat jigs, but here they decided to apply the same methods slowed way down. If you think about, of course you hear stuff like that in fast, upbeat Irish music, follow all the dough, follow all the day, but they did it very slow. And of course, most people weren't used to hearing Gaelic on the radio and were trying to interpret these lyrics and couldn't make much sense of them. And that in particular, there was no sense to make of. It's just the mouth music, the Irish tradition. But taking that approach, using a Prophet 5 synthesizer and layering all those vocals was very drastically different from the much more rooted in traditional Irish music sound that Clannad had spent the last decade plus establishing both as performers of and as in the public eye. So,
and mostly going back to for the rest of this record.
Well, they actually, this record, they altered it because of the success of this song. They employed more synthesizers and experimental layerings than were originally intended.
Okay.
Yeah, so it did alter the direction of this record. I think it would have been much more rooted in it's shocking if you actually listen to their previous work. Up to this point, it's shocking how much of a departure this album is. And it still sounds very much rooted in Irish music.
Yes, but it's also interesting that even those previous albums had been somewhat controversial. You know, there were purists who found that they were fiddling around with traditional tunes and orchestra, instrumentation and arrangements. So I can only imagine where this record, the purists would have been completely aghast at the deployment of all these electronic sort of sounds and effects and so forth.
They said that they lost their purist audience at this point, but
completely.
gained they got a huge new audience as a result of it, because this was a massive hit. It was it reached number 5 on the UK singles chart and number 2 in the Irish singles chart. I know that Bono of U2 said that when he first heard it driving in his car and it came on the radio, he had to pull over, and soon U2 would embrace this song as the outro music at their concerts. So it made its way around, and it's had further exposure over the years. It was used in films like Patriot Games and a Volkswagen ad. We know how well Volkswagen ads can popularize a song. Nick Drake, Pink Moon. But it has had exposure to American audiences over the years as well. Mel, I'm curious, how did it hit in Australia? What is your experience with it? I mean, what is your experience with this record? How did it come on your radar? Many questions, since you're the one that suggested it.
Yes. I think I don't know what the reception was in 1983. I mean, I was 9 years old, and it was not music that my parents listened to at all. I first bought this on CD, I think around 1990 or 91, so my late teenage years. I was deeply into U2 and remained so for quite a long time. And I had a couple of close friends actually, but one particularly who at that point had really embraced her Irish roots. She'd taken up Irish dancing, was obsessed with river dance, wanted to learn Gaelic, and she was, I guess the benefit for me was that she was listening to all of these Celtic music-inspired groups, such as Clannad, Iona, David Bainbridge, both of which I really love their music still, and also more mainstream groups, which we'd all know, like, you know, the Corrs, the Cranberries, Kirsty MacColl, the Pogues. So, you know, she'd very much deep immersion, and I guess I'd sort of benefited a little bit from that. And I'd also had an established interest in Van Morrison's Astral Weeks, thanks to one of my senior high school English teacher who actually greatly influenced my musical interests and tastes, particularly at that point, and not just in sort of broad rock or pop terms. The other thing was that at the same time, I was also deeply into shoegaze, particularly My Bloody Valentine. And this may be a very long bow to draw, but I think the hazy vocals and the ethereal sounds, albeit of a very different type, in that sort of in shoegaze, which I hate using that term, but it's convenient. I think these were things that I was very attracted to, particularly at the time, and the just the musicality of Clannad and the blood harmonies, that term that I know you guys love to use, were very striking. I think also, like everyone else, I was very taken by the earworm Orinoco Flow, which was referenced in the introduction as well by Enya, who's of course the sister of Clannad, of the Clannad members, which I won't get into because I don't want to ruin the bio.
Oh yeah, well you already did.
No. That
was the big reveal. No, I'm just kidding. It's all good.
I mean, I think all of those things sort of converged, and when I saw this actually on sale, I think it was cheap, like a cheap CD, or maybe it was, I just went, oh, I'm going to get that record because I'd heard it on cassette and I thought, I really need that album in my collection, and it's been a mainstay. I think I've returned to it. Sometimes I haven't listened to it for years, but then I've returned to it and it is just an embrace. You know, it's an incredible recording in my opinion. Anyway.
Well, yeah, thank you. I had no prior experience with this group until you suggested it. I don't recall having ever heard of them. Obviously, I'm familiar with Enya. It's pretty hard not to be on some level. But I'm curious if Sean or Jeremy had any background with them either.
Same as you. Enya lover. Never heard of Clannad.
Also a childhood Enya lover, long time. But I was aware of this band name, and I kind of just thought that they were a traditional Celtic group, which is not a genre that I typically collect. So I'd never really listened to them, and I was quite surprised when I listened to this album for the first time. The ethereal elements that I was not expecting.
Well, it's pretty new age.
Yes.
So
yeah, as soon as I heard it, I was like, ooh, gotta put this in the collection. Play it on Deep Zones, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of my first thought. I was like, well, there's definitely some new... I don't think I even yet had made the Enya connection when Mel suggested it. And I was like, yeah, this is a pretty... At least is going to be another entry into the ongoing New Age representation on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Their story is very interesting. I have plenty of bio here. I tried to keep it as short as I could. But before we get into that, I think we should play another selection, maybe one in English, because this album actually has some songs with English lyrics. So Mel had suggested we just go ahead and play the second song, Tower Hill. So we'll listen to that, side A, track 2.
Tower Hill, I think, is just so quintessentially Irish in that it refers to, I mean, there's, people try to interpret lyrics You could say that it is about a place. It's not really about a place. They even said that themselves, but it's sort of about a metaphorical place, like a landscape. It could also be about an interior, like an emotional landscape, or a place a metaphorical landscape. It's just so delicate, the overlapping musical lines in the song. And I was listening to it the other day after I'd suggested it, Peter, and I thought, this song's in 5/4. And I thought to myself, as a time signature, I thought maybe that's one of the reasons it's also so entrancing, because the meter moves around. I also really love this song. I love Mare's voice, but, I think it's Kieran or Paul, one of the brothers, is singing on this song, and his voice is also very entrancing in a different way. And again, we hear all those sort of overlaid, produced choral sounds and sort of harmonies that create this sort of cushioning around the main vocal line, and it's just truly beautiful. And of course, it has a lovely flute, which we all know the last one I did. So it's not rockin'. I love that Jeremy thinks I only listen to like rockin' music, but we also did do an episode where I talked about pan flute. So and I thought this would be a nice connection. No, but really, in all honesty, I find this a very attractive melody and just such a great piece of music. But yeah, it's in 5/4, Peter. You could maybe learn that and add that one to your long repertoire. I notice you're teaching yourself.
Oh yeah, you should play the bass from this, Peter.
Oh yeah, I do. I've been working on some bass parts, and yeah, good. I'll start simple and go with Money by Pink Floyd for the the weird time signature.
Actually, the bass sounds amazing on this record. It gives me vibes of like Kate Bush albums of that 80s era where there's Eberhard Weber and other amazing bass players. It just sounds so good on this record.
Yeah, Kate Bush is actually a good comparison on at least on some levels, sort of a sonic palette. I can definitely see that. Some of her work from around the same time. Well, there's so much to learn about this band. Should we get into a truncated bio here?
Yeah, who are these people?
I've sharpened my number 2 pencil here, and I'm ready to take notes.
Okay. Well, truncated is misleading because I feel like there's so much here, but I tried my best. Clannad was formed in Dore, a remote parish in northwestern Ireland, consisting of siblings Kieran, Moya, and Paul Brennan. That's probably a very anglicized way of saying those names, but that's who I am. Along with their twin uncles, Noel and Padraig Duggan, who were not much older than the Brennan siblings, just a few years. They were raised as a Roman Catholic family of musicians. The Brennan parents were both musicians. In 1968, the Brennan and Duggan fathers bought and restored an old tavern and ran it as a music club called Leo's Tavern. The children performed there, developing their own act. Elder sister Moya sang and played harp. Brothers Kieran and Paul handled bass, vocals, and bongos. And twin uncles Padraig and Noel played guitar. This quintet made their live debut outside of Leo's Tavern in 1970 at a music competition in nearby Letterkenny.
Yeah, I saw that and let out a little smile myself.
Yeah. There it is.
There it is.
Pitter patter.
It's a cool Canadian TV show for those not in the know.
I was not in the know.
Yeah, I don't know what its reach is to Australia, but it hit pretty big here, Letterkenny, with a lot of my social group, including Sean and Jeremy for sure.
Oh, yes. It resonates with the Midwest of America.
So, Clannad's entry form was submitted 10 minutes before the deadline at that competition, and bam, they won the competition, which awarded them a trophy, money, and a recording contract with Polydor Records. Now we're talking. But they were too young to sign, however, so it did not happen for them yet at that point. They billed themselves as Clannad's Dore, Irish for family from Dore. However, in 1973, they shortened the name, taking the A and the D from the second two words and just adding those on to clan, family, so they got Clannad out of that. They played traditional Irish acoustic folk music and collected material from old singers and storytellers and built a repertoire of traditional Irish folk songs. From an early stage, they were told they shouldn't sing in the traditional Irish language of Gaelic because it was associated with poverty and would not be commercially viable. But this, God bless them, only encouraged the members to continue to do so. Some contrarian nature there.
I like it.
In addition to collecting traditional songs and arranging them, they also wrote original material and covered songs by artists like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, so they would do more contemporary stuff from time to time. Come 1973, they again placed first at the Letterkenny Folk Festival and were offered a deal with Philips Records this time, which the members were now old enough to negotiate themselves. They would record and release several albums throughout the 1970s, and they grew in popularity throughout Europe in places like Germany, France, and Switzerland. Come 1979, Clannad undertook a 36-date North American tour, which was the most extensive for an Irish band at that time. I think U2 has since busted that wide open, but 79, Clannad were it. They began working with prominent Irish music producer and manager Nicky Ryan, known for his involvement with artists like Gary Moore, Planxty. I've never understood if I'm saying that band's name correctly. I apologize if I'm not saying it right. They're a great band. And Thin Lizzy. In 1980, Nicky Ryan persuaded the younger sister of siblings Moya, Paul, and Kieran Brennan to join the band, and this was an 18-year-old Enya Brennan. Yes, that Enya, as we've discussed already.
What?
It was her. She was the younger sibling, and she sang and played keyboard. During her 2-year stint with the group, Enya and manager Ryan attempted to steer the group toward a more layered electronic sound and a more heavily produced overall sound. However, the long-standing members were resistant and often tended to revert to their traditional folk music style. So in 1982, Nicky Ryan and his wife Roma, who was also managing the band, left the Clannad camp, and the young Enya, feeling restricted in the group, departed with them, never to be heard from again.
In this case, their contrarian nature kept them from super global mega success.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting to me that then, obviously, Enya went on to great fame working with the Ryans as her manager, and it's funny to me that immediately upon this departure, Clannad releases theme from Harry's Game featuring a Prophet 5 synthesizer and over 100 vocals and have the biggest hit of their career. So, but yeah, just think if they'd had Enya on board.
Yep.
This album, their 7th studio album, Magical Ring, was delayed to record more material that would match that sound and direction. I mean, Jeremy, you were saying that you did feel that you could hear that direction on the second track that we listened to, Tower Hill.
Yeah, you can hear some like 80s production, or as you mentioned, maybe like Kate Bush kind of sounding tracks. In that second song, you can hear that. But I feel like as the album goes on, it kind of reverts back to more traditional sounds. There's some synth and stuff going on in the production, but I thought the first 2 songs kind of stick out and don't mesh quite as well with the rest of the album.
Yeah, well, and I think it was they had already started work on the album when they had that massive hit with a song that was completely disparate to their style, their existing style. So I don't know that they reworked every track or not. There's a sense of, oh, hey, maybe this is working.
maybe Enya was right.
Yeah. Yeah, so this album features a mix of original and traditional Irish songs, plus a cover of I See Red by Jim Rafferty. This was the follow-up single to Theme from Harry's Game and went to number 19 in Ireland and number 81 in the UK, so had a little chart action. Jim Rafferty is actually the brother of Jerry Rafferty of Baker Street and Steelers Wheel Stuck in the Middle with You fame. So this is a version of his song I See Red that we're going to play next. Side B, track 1.
That may be a little bit different production or style than the first two tracks like we talked about, but I do feel like pretty much everything on this album has a similar way of kind of drawing you in to its own world. Like this album definitely has some strong hypnotic qualities to it. Like you listen to the album and it just puts you in a specific mood. Like you're really drawn into what they're doing here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, actually. I think that's a beautiful way of describing it, Sean. It's definitely an album of world building, and I think it's then very unsurprising that they went on to record Legend and some of the subsequent albums that also they became sort of quite interested in writing. They wrote a lot of soundtrack music, which is, of course, a form of world building in its own way. I think one thing I really enjoy about that song is the way that the Irish or the traditional Irish instruments are used to create the different lines, which if you listen to the recording, this song was recorded by Frida from ABBA. I don't know if you know that, from 1980. It was recorded in 1982. But Jim Rafferty himself has done a recording of this actually very recently. It was released by Drag City. And what's interesting is that the thing that he has, I know, I laugh too. I gave it a good listen last night, actually. I thought, oh, wow, that kind of blew my mind. And he actually, the styling is very different of his own song. Like he's playing it obviously much more the way that he maybe envisaged it. But he takes from Clannad's production, he takes that shaker or that pulsing sound that is in his recording. And I thought, isn't that interesting how a different arrangement can make you think very differently even about your own song. It's quite fascinating. But I think also the world building thing, or it does draw a lineage to prog rock, which before this point nobody would have ever put Clannad in the prog rock basket. But it's amazing how with this record, how many prog nerds talk about how much they love this record. And I definitely think that the folk element, which is quite significant in a lot of progressive rock music, that is a connector. And I think this album with the overlay of the keyboards and the synthesizers sort of tipped them into that genre territory as well.
Yeah, I could definitely see the Jethro Tull fans getting into this band pretty hard.
Well, so that makes me, I have to ask, it has to be addressed, and I'm going to direct it at Jeremy.
Oh, I know where this is going.
I mean, this is Irish, traditional Irish music.
That's true.
When you've had issues, to put it mildly, with some of the other albums that we featured that are more old-fashioned folk, those tend to be more British, like, or English, I should say, in their traditional nature. Did this hit you with the dreaded Ren Fair vibes at all?
Not the songs we've listened to, but there's a few other ones where it kind of rubs up on that territory where I could feel like my shoulders tensing up a little, and my like heart started beating a little faster, and my mouth got a little dry, and I'm like, oh, they're not gonna do it, are they? And then it would kind of mellow back out, and I'd be like, okay, I got through this wave of Ren Fair sound.
Yeah, I mean, it has that very traditional sound to it at times, but I think I thought it would strike you. It's a bit more in the new age direction, and even that like proggy kind of direction. So I thought maybe you could appreciate the Enya thing. I think also helps out because it kind of sounds like Enya at a lot of points.
Oh yeah, yeah. Overall, it gets the big thumbs up from me. But there are, like you said, there's those moments where it kind of goes in that direction, and I was kind of like, I don't know.
Well, I just had to ask. It had to be addressed. I think our listeners would be perplexed if we didn't.
Yeah, sometimes when we do things that I don't like, I just keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, I could name some of those times, but I won't.
Thank you.
Well, we'll try to get through the bio real quickly here, and as Mel mentioned, the Legend album was the one that was the Robin of Sherwood TV drama soundtrack, correct, Mel?
Yes, that's correct. And that's the one that my husband, when he thinks of Clannad, that's the one he thinks of because he's so deeply into fantasy and, those sorts of stories. And so Robin, the Hooded Man, sort of an ongoing running joke in our long relationship. But yes, and I think that's also interesting when you think about what Robin Hood is about, and think about Irish heritage and the Troubles and everything else to do with the tenuous relationships between the British and the Irish. But anyway, moving on.
So they won a BAFTA for Best Original Television Music in 1985 for that score to Robin of Sherwood. The first Irish band to win it, I should mention. And as you said, they got into soundtracks, films, documentaries, advertisements. In 1996, Clannad received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Irish Recorded Music Association. And then in 1999, their album Landmarks won a Grammy for Best New Age Album. And the 90s were their peak in popularity. And as I mentioned, the first song we listened to, Theme from Harry's Game, that came back around in the 90s to kind of, it was sort of a song that kept going viral and finding a new audience. The group became somewhat inactive in the 2000s as members pursued solo careers and projects. They reunited in the late 2000s and toured, but only released one more studio album and a handful of singles. And in recent years, the group has called it quits. The Duggan brothers, Pedrig and Noel, have both passed away in the last decade. The final concert of Clannad took place at the Royal Albert Hall on October 30th, 2024. However, they made a brief one-off appearance performing Theme from Harry's Game at the 50th anniversary concert for Hot Press Magazine in February of 2026. So very recently, and then unfortunately, Moya Brennan passed away in April of this year, 2026, aged 73. So very recently, as of the recording of this episode. I know that Enya even made a rare public appearance after her sister's passing. So that I think Moya being a very key member of one of effectively the lead vocalist. So that I think we have seen most likely the final concerts of Clannad. But I'm sure that the other musicians will continue to work in one way or another. They seem to just be lifelong musicians. Now, I'm curious, Mel, were you aware of that, of Moya's passing? Because you made the selection shortly thereafter when we were talking.
Yes, yes. Being being the music nerd that I am and owning a record store, and I think I had put we had a different Clannad album in the shop, and someone was interested to find out about them, and I said, "Oh, I'm sure I've seen that around," and went and hunted around in the $10 records, I have to say, and pulled it out and sort of put it on and played a couple of tracks, and then I was curious as to, I think she must have just passed away the day before, and I was curious as to why this person was asking about Clannad, and that was why. And so I then sort of deep dived, hadn't really listened to this album for a little bit, hadn't really read much about what had been going on for them recently, and so yes, I was sort of quite struck by the outpouring of sort of grief. I mean, it did end up, that day was in sort of the Australian news, which I think is very interesting, given that Enya was, ridiculously popular everywhere and was far more of a household name across generations. I mean, you said that it was a song of your childhood. That was definitely my teenagehood, that people who were older than me, many people would know Enya. That was there, and then I was thinking about what records could I put forward to make a pitch to do another episode, and when this appeared in the shop, I went, that's the one. That's the album. So yes, it was a confluence of events, as they say.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I wasn't aware of that when you suggested it, and then I'm doing the research and I'm realizing, oh wow, Moya just passed away. So I figured that had to have had some impact on the decision.
Yeah, very much so.
Well, we have come to the end of Clannad's bio, but I turn now to my ever-increasing New Age correspondent and co-host, Sean Hartman, wondering if he might have thought of some recommended similar albums to this one, if people can't find Magical Ring by Clannad, which it seems to be around in the States, and it's sold well worldwide, so it's probably out there. You could probably get it for under $10. But did you come up with anything, Sean?
Oh, I absolutely did. But real quick, I just want to speak briefly on the artwork for this album. One, I love the cover shot. It definitely is very representative of the vibe and the music within. It's got the shadows and the sun and the runes and the landscape shot. And I wrote down real quick who did the artwork on this. It's a guy named Jared Mankiewicz, who is a very prolific album art guy. He also did Rolling Stones, Between the Buttons, Slade, King Crimson Red, ABC, Lexicon of Love, as featured on the show, and one of Jeremy's all-time favorites, Richard and Linda Thompson, Shoot Out the Lights.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
That's a good one.
That's Between the Buttons is my favorite Rolling Stones album.
Yeah, cool album cover, too.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, you mentioned a lot of great album covers there, so...
Yeah, and that's just
thank you.
Tip of the iceberg. Also, the band photo on the back of this Clannad album is like the most 1983 band photo I've ever seen.
It is, isn't it? The drapey brown back, the clothes, everything. It's, yeah.
Yeah, they've got the like Sears photo booth set going on. They've got the 80s hairdos, the jackets and vests. Oh man, it's perfect.
And it's really special when you remember that two of them are twin brothers, and you look and you're like, oh my God, they are twin brothers.
Yep. So
like
good.
They put them at different angles so you don't pick up on that until you're looking for it.
All right. Recommended similar albums. First up is a group that Peter just became aware of and had posted about in the group chat, Night Noise. I'm recommending their 1987 album, Something of Time, on the legendary Windham Hill Records.
I just became aware of them.
Didn't you post about like finding some new age comp that you were playing and there was some Night Noise on it?
Not that I remember.
Well, maybe I dreamed this, but you had found some sort of like traditional slash new age compilation that you put on at work, and you'd taken a picture of the track, and I was like, ooh, Night Noise. I know that group.
Oh, well, I was listening to a new age compilation at work, and maybe Night Noise was on it, but I guess I didn't take note of it.
Well,
it was a Windham Hill.
Yeah, well, if a couple of the tracks had an Irish bent to it, those were the Night Noise tracks that you listened to. Night Noise was a group formed by guitarist Michael Domhnall, who was a leading figure in traditional Irish music, but wanted to explore a more contemporary sound blending Celtic jazz and classical chamber music. So, good comparison to this, roots in the traditional, but looking to expand and experiment.
Cool. I'll go back to that comp and expand from there.
There you go. Second one really leans into the vocal sampling that we've talked about on this album. I'm recommending Claire Hamill's Voices from 1986. That's on Coda Records. Claire was a UK singer-songwriter who initially drew comparisons to Joni Mitchell in the 70s, as well as touring with some prog groups like King Crimson, and then reinvented herself as a new age artist in the 80s. This album in particular is interesting comparison because all of the sounds on the album are originated by the human voice. There are like synthesizers and drum machines, but there's also a lot of like both melodic human voice sampling and percussive voice sampling, and it's gorgeous and has a similar lush layered tone to some of the tracks here.
Nice.
It's intriguing.
Yeah, really good one. I'd like to cover it in depth at some point, and one that I have definitely come close to featuring on the podcast at points, and I'm sure will feature eventually. Sally Oldfield, Water Bear from 1978 on Bronze Records and Chrysalis Records.
Is she part of the Mike Oldfield family?
Yes, she is the older sister of Mike and Terry Oldfield.
Okay. I don't think I've heard her work, but I've seen the name.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Oldfield is definitely the most famous of those. I think many people would be surprised to learn that it's a family of talented musicians, but Sally in particular, I think, is very underappreciated. She's a brilliant musician, and I also didn't realize that the Oldfield family is Irish. Sally started out as a dancer and was also a childhood friend of Marianne Faithfull, and then she became very talented multi-instrumentalist, and this is one of those albums where she is playing the majority of the instruments all over. And there's also a lot of great vocal layering, and yeah, it's an incredible album. Water Bear, 1978.
Did she do session work as well?
Yes, and she is featured on some of Mike's recordings.
Yeah, well, I feel like I've seen her name in liner notes.
Yep, definitely.
Well, very nice, Sean. That sounds like some very intriguing work to dig into and some possible future selections on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Melanie.
Yes,
You own a record store.
I do indeed.
Would you like to tell us about that? And if people happen to be in the Sydney, Australia area, where they can find it?
Sure. We are Rocky Road Records. We've been online for almost 5 years, but we've had a physical shop for about 2.5 years, and we are located in Artarmon, which is on the lower north shore of Sydney. So it's a quick train ride from the centre of the city to Artarmon. We are right across the road from the record shop's right across the road from the train station. Fun fact about Artarmon, it never had a record store before we opened, but CBS had a massive pressing plant that operated in Artarmon in the industrial area, which is a couple of streets away from where we are located. And you can very quickly tell if a record was pressed in Australia and pressed at Artarmon because its matrix runout will start with MX. And so these are the sorts of fun things that record store owners look for when they are trying to work out whether your pressing is worth $10 or $100 or $1,000. So I spend my life making my eyesight worse by looking for matrices. That's my weekend job. My husband is the store manager and runs it all the time. Yes, so it's great having a record store. It's a way to, we've really found ourselves embraced by the community, and we've got so many loyal customers both in Sydney and around Australia. Australia has many remote places. It's a big country, and so we have customers from some very far-flung places who buy from us online as well, which is lovely. Sometimes they visit us. So yeah, if you're in Sydney and you want to come to a record store, you'll come to the only record store on the Lower North Shore, which is kind of hard to believe, but there we are. And that's us, Rocky Road Records.
I've been using my bag you sent.
No, thanks.
So if anybody's there from Kalamazoo, that's directly from me.
Yeah. I've used it as a
Excellent.
gig bag on a few occasions too. So we're getting the name out there in Kalamazoo.
They're good bags.
Oh, yeah.
The regulars will come in, they'll buy records, and then we'll have like a loaf of bread and, something else stuck in the bag as well. It's great. We're very happy with our Rocky Road Records tote bags.
Well, very cool. Someday, maybe we can get once we get that podcast mansion purchased, which, speaking of which, if you want to help us out with the podcast mansion, no, I shouldn't. It goes towards the podcast, but it could go towards a cool thing like an Australia trip. Who knows? We would go all out. But if you do want to sign up to support the podcast and get some cool bonus content in return, as Mel has been a subscriber for a long time and can attest to the quality of Mel is the guaranteed bonus episode listen and feedback that we get. You can go over to patreon.com/I'd Buy That Podcast. We just recorded another episode that will be out soon, hopefully by the time this airs or soon thereafter, on the band Sherry and their song Murphy's Law, which we think had an impact on the listeners were spared this, but we had many, many technical problems getting Mel dialed in here, and we think that recording that Murphy's Law episode right beforehand had cursed us.
Yeah. Shout out to Pierce for waking up and getting things straightened out.
Yeah. Thank you, Pierce.
He'll appreciate it.
And here we are. Yes, and we've made it to the end of the line here, so we've got through it. Thank you, Mel, for bringing another real banger of a record, something that I don't think would have been on our radar to cover on the podcast.
I'm very glad.
Without your, yeah. What did you have picked for the final song to go out on?
This is your way of making me speaking Gaelic, isn't it, Peter?
It is. You notice I'm always taking the reins until it comes time to speak Gaelic.
How would you say this one, Mel?
I will. Here's my best attempt. Ches Fahon Costa, down by the coast. That's the English translation. I'm looking forward to the Gaelic hate mail with my appalling pronunciation.
You know what's great about Gaelic hate mail? You can't read it.
That's right. It'll definitely have more. It'll have more vowels than Welsh. I guess that's one help. So, and I selected this one because it does bookend the album. It references some of the same lyrical content as the first song, Theme from Harry's Game, which, as you rightly said, Peter, was drawn from traditional Irish verse. And I selected this because, again, world building, and it's, can I just say that, yes, the photographer did an amazing job. If you look at some of their other album covers, it's quite clear that they became very deeply interested in how their image could propel them. And they then worked with Anton Corbin, who also worked with U2. And every cover, pretty much, there's a couple of exceptions, but it is about landscape. It's about evoking worlds and sort of experience and place without actually being there. And I think this song does that beautifully.
Well put and well pronounced as far as I can tell. So we'll get out of here on, I'm just going to call it Down by the Coast. Final song on the album. Again, we thank you, listeners, as always, for tuning in to I'd Buy That for $1. And check us out on Patreon. I'm co-host Peter Cook.
I'm co-host Jeremy.
I'm co-host Sean Hartman.
And I'm Melanie, the guest. Thank you again.
Thank you again, Melanie.